Anthony Gucciardi takes over. You know, this report is so big on 9/11 and other things that are happening. I'm tempted to fly Wayne Madsen here next week, next Wednesday, if he can do it, to be in studio with us and also plan out some of the other investigative reports he wants to go out and engage in. So we'll see if that can happen. And again, I've gotten better about not talking over host or guest. I've gotten a lot better. Everybody's noticed. The problem is you talk about 9/11 with me or carbon taxes or Agenda 21 or whatever the stuff I'm really informed on, I get a headache. I want to just tell everybody thousands of points. I'm talking thousands of points. 9/11 is such a ridiculous fraud that it's insane. It's like finding 20 dead bodies in the back of somebody's pickup truck, and you don't know exactly where the guy driving it got it. He won't tell you what he did, but you go to his house, and there's all these chainsaws and blood and bodies, and then videos of him with the dead bodies, and you're like, buddy, we know you're involved. We don't know exactly how you did it or where you got all these people, but you are the suspect, and we can tell you did it. And then you got the motive to take our freedoms. It makes me sick. Now, I want to shift gears, take a few calls for Wayne Madsen, from Eric, Damian, John, Chad, Nick, and others. I appreciate folks holding. But Wayne, separately with this heat up of war with Russia, obviously Russia's got its own problems. We're not saying it's perfect, but the West is starting war with them. I remember being a kid hearing about Russian subs on U.S. cables in the Atlantic, you know, when I was watching CBS News with Dan Rather while my mom cooked dinner in the kitchen. Do you think the Russians really are putting submersible vehicles down on the cables? That they don't say they cut them, or is this just hype? What do you think's going on?
Submarine that does the same type of thing. It's the USS Jimmy Carter, specially configured submarine for those same kinds of operations. So obviously the Russians are conducting drills like we conduct drills. The Israelis have submarines that have done the same thing. And a few years ago, if you recall, there were massive submarine cable cuts in the Eastern Mediterranean that were reportedly done by the Israeli submarines because that basically cut off all the communications to Iran, Pakistan, all the way to Southeast Asia. So these are the types of things that are done. When I worked in the Navy, we had something called the Sound Surveillance System, SOSUS, and after a few disclosures, thanks to the spy John Walker and the capture by North Korea of the Pueblo, the Russians would routinely send their submarines around our hydrophone arrays to let us know that they knew what we had there. And then, you know, they'd rev up their engines and, you know, cause all kinds of acoustic anomalies for the ocean systems technicians that were listening.
So that's the equivalent of a teenager burning out his tires from the hamburger place.
Yeah, pretty much. The Russians are letting us know that they know. Look, everybody knows where these cables are anyway. There's maps of them, and some of the Ed Snowden documents released. Obviously, the NSA knows exactly where all the submarines
and has their own taps on them.
They're tapping them, exactly, right.
Well, that's what's crazy is they take normal military drills by other countries and act like it's acts of war, while the West are the ones moving weaponry up against other countries' borders.
Right. Right now, we're supposedly supporting the Syrian Kurds against their enemies, and the Turks are now said to be bombing the same people. Turkey, our NATO ally. What kind of policy is this? Either we support the Kurds, the Russians are supporting the Syrian Kurds, but we're going to allow the Turks to bomb them?
It's total schizophrenia. Stay there. We're back in a minute and a half. We're going to take a few calls and let you get out of here. WayneMadsenReport.com. Briefly, before I end this hour and come back in the fourth hour that a lot of stations are starting to pick up now that we've added it, we've got a lot of specials running now that end on the 31st or on the 1st. Free shipping, 10% off storable foods, InfoWarsStore.com, InfoWarsSelect.com. Free shipping, 10% off on water filtration systems like the new Alexa Pure Pro. And we've got 25% off the liver cleanse, gallbladder cleanse, oxy powder package at InfoWarsLife.com. And your purchase makes it all possible, so thank you. A globalist surveillance blimp crashed. Joe Biggs has got a report coming up. Anthony Gucciardi will have highlights of the debate, the skewed questions. It was pretty sick. Wayne, I want to take a few calls on that subject, and anybody else we don't get to will have to hold, and they'll get to them throughout the hour. We appreciate the callers. But what did you think of the debate? I don't know if you watched it. We don't script these interviews. last night. I mean, the questions were some of the most attack dog I've ever seen, and it really blew up in the media's face.
Well, I just wish they would go back to the original debate formats of years past where you actually had a debate rather than a joint news conference.
League of Women Voters did a good job.
They sure did. Going back to the Kennedy-Nixon debate of 1960, they were only thrown out of the process after the RNC and the DNC got together and created like this presidential debate commission, which is a monopoly, well, a duopoly of power. That's why you don't get a Ralph Nader's or Ross Perot had to fight tooth and nail to get into the one in '92, and that wouldn't have happened unless his poll numbers were so high at the time. So it would be nice to see the League of Women Voters, and then see the League, if they were in charge, they could say, look, if you don't have a certain threshold, you're not going to be Bobby Jindal, you're not going to have the kiddie table debate or the undercard debate. You're only going to have debates between those who are command, and not from these phony polls either. You see, the media runs their own polls, so they can determine who they're going to put on the,
Sure.
The
from the wide spectrum, who do you think's still in the lead Republican-wise? You think it's Trump, and on the Democratic side, is it Clinton or is it Sanders?
Oh, I think it's clearly Hillary Clinton on the Democratic side, and I think it's still Trump on the Republican side. I mean, Ben Carson did not really do himself any favors when he's flip-flopping on a lot of issues now. And I think Jeb Bush is the big surprise. Everybody thought it was going to be Bush v. Clinton again in 2016. His temper tantrums, like the little spoiled Bush he is, are not doing him any favors. So his decrease in popularity has caused Marco Rubio to basically pick up some of his strength.
Sure.
And, of course, that's why Bush launched into the attack on his old mentor, or I should say his apprentice, Rubio, for high absenteeism in the Senate.
Let's jam in some calls here, and we'll get to everybody, but I'm leaving because Gucciardi's taking over. Got a nice, fresh horse ready to lead the charge here coming up. Let's go ahead and go to John in FEMA Region 5, then Eric. Go ahead, sir. Thanks for holding.
Yeah, Alex, how you been?
Good, brother.
Hey, I hope you enjoyed your time off. You could probably use some more.
I loved it, yeah.
My cable system here, where I live, does not even have CNBC on it, so I had to go to the source and watch it on InfoWars last night. And some of the questions were just, it was just totally ridiculous. The way they were asking the questions, and they were going back to the same people to avoid going to the front runners, basically. And
I did notice they were trying to give more time to folks that weren't front runners this time. And in the past, it was supposedly whoever was a front runner got more time. I would just rather have equal time, but it's kind of hard to control. And yes, we do live coverage of these debates with our reporters there in live time, analyzing the propaganda via fair use. What's your take on that, Wayne Madsen, on why they were giving some people more time?
Well, because I think the media clearly shows favorites in all these debates. That's why there should be a neutral group that handles the debate, the questions. In other words, you could have a member of the media asking the questions, but the questions should be developed by some neutral, like the League of Women Voters. I mean, the League of Women Voters came up with the questions in 1960, and Howard K. Smith posed the questions to Kennedy and Nixon. So that's what we need to go back to. But you got them to look. This is the reason why Trump is doing as well as he is. The media has turned this entire process into a reality TV show, and he's the king of reality.
That's right. Great job, Wayne. We'll talk to you soon. Anthony Gucciardi coming up.